Elena Rivera had spent 3 years perfecting the art of looking fine. She could smile at hotel guests while her heart felt like shattered glass. She could make small talk about the weather while memories of her late husband flickered through her mind like an old film reel. She could fold napkins into perfect swans and arrange flowers in crystal vases and check in demanding tourists without ever letting them see the loneliness that followed her home each night to her small apartment in Queens. But on the Tuesday afternoon when Daniel Sterling walked into the Sterling Grand Hotel looking like he had just crawled out of a canyon, Elena's carefully constructed facade cracked just a little. The lobby was crowded with the usual November guests. Businessmen in sharp suits tapped on phones. A family from Texas argued over directions to Times Square. Mrs. Harrington, the society wife who stayed at the hotel every autumn, sat by the window having afternoon tea, her pearl necklace catching the light as she gossiped with her equally wealthy friends. And then the door revolved, and he appeared. The man was a disaster. His backpack looked like it had survived 3 wars and a hurricane. His hiking boots were caked with red dirt. His beard was thick and unkempt, streaked with gray. His jeans had holes that were not the fashionable kind. His flannel shirt hung loose over a white undershirt that might have been white a very long time ago. Elena was halfway through pouring herself coffee when she saw him. The cup tilted. Hot liquid splashed on the marble counter. She grabbed a napkin, her eyes never leaving the stranger as he stood in the center of the lobby, looking around with an expression that was either wonder or confusion. Mrs. Harrington had stopped mid-sentence. Her teacup hung suspended in the air. Her mouth formed a small circle of distaste. Elena made a decision. She had been raised to treat everyone with dignity. Her late husband, Marcus, had been a doorman at a hotel in Boston before they moved to New York, and he had taught her that kindness costs nothing but means everything. This man, whoever he was, deserved respect even if he clearly did not belong in a 5-star hotel where rooms started at $500 a night. She set down her coffee cup. She smoothed her burgundy blazer. She walked across the lobby with purpose, positioning herself between the stranger and the afternoon tea service, where Mrs. Harrington and her friends were already whispering. "Sir," Elena said, keeping her voice professional but warm. "Excuse me, sir." The man turned. His eyes were startling, blue, clear, and somehow both tired and alert. Sun-kissed skin stretched over good bone structure. There was something in those eyes that did not match the rest of his appearance. Intelligence, depth, a hint of sadness that Elena recognized because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. "Are you lost?" she asked, forcing a smile. "I can give you directions to the nearest hostel. It's only 6 blocks away. Very clean, very affordable." The man's lips twitched. Was he trying not to laugh? "Actually," he said, his voice deeper than she expected, cultured in a way that surprised her, "I would like a room." Elena blinked. Surely she had heard him wrong. "A room here?" she asked carefully. "Yes, please." She glanced around the lobby. More guests were watching now. A bellhop named Carlos had paused with a luggage cart, clearly ready to intervene if this became a situation. The lobby manager, Robert Wagner, had emerged from his office and was observing from near the elevators. Elena lowered her voice. "Sir, this is the Sterling Grand. Our rooms start at $500 per night and go up from there." The man nodded seriously. "I understand. The hostel on 47th takes daily payments," Elena whispered, trying to be helpful. "And look." She reached into her purse, pulled out a wrinkled $5 bill. It was probably her lunch money, but something about this man's thin frame made her heart ache. "Here, for a sandwich. You look really thin." For a moment, the man just stared at the $5. Something shifted in his expression. His eyes grew soft. When was the last time, Elena wondered, that someone had offered this man something without wanting anything in return? "That's very kind," he said quietly, and she could tell he meant it. "But I really do need a room. I have a credit card." Elena let out a small sigh. She had seen this before. Tourists with stolen credit cards. Scam artists who looked pathetic to gain sympathy. But something about this man felt different. Maybe it was the sadness in his eyes. Maybe it was the way he held himself with a dignity that his clothes could not diminish. "All right," she said, gesturing toward the front desk. "But if there is any problem..." She made a universal gesture that meant you will be escorted out by security, possibly with force. No trouble, the man promised. I promise. As they walked to the front desk, Elena subtly signaled Carlos, who moved closer, ready to assist if needed. The man was too polite to be a typical drifter, but better safe than sorry. Name? Elena asked, fingers poised over the keyboard. Daniel Sterling. Elena typed without looking up. Coincidence, she thought. Same last name as the hotel. Probably a common name. She held out her hand. ID and credit card, please. He handed her a driver's license that was dusty but legitimate. Massachusetts, age 56, organ donor. She glanced at the photo and then at his face. Same man, just cleaner in the picture. What type of room would you like, sir? She pulled up the system, already selecting the least expensive option. A standard room on the 4th floor, away from the premium suites. Actually, Daniel Sterling said, a hint of amusement in his voice. How about the presidential suite? Elena stopped typing. She looked up slowly. The presidential suite? She repeated. If it's available. Sir, the presidential suite is $3,000 per night. That's fine. Elena stared at him as if he had suddenly sprouted a second head. Was this man serious? She double-checked the system. The suite was available, as it usually was on November weekdays, but she would need to run his payment first for verification. I will need to process your card, she said slowly, for verification purposes. He handed her a credit card. Matte black. No logo she recognized. She held it under the light, checking for signs of fraud, then swiped it through the machine with the air of someone expecting disaster. She held her breath. The screen flickered. Approved. Elena stared at the confirmation. $3,000, just like that. No decline, no error message, just smooth, immediate approval. That went through, she murmured, mostly to herself. Great, Daniel said, and she could swear he was trying not to smile. But Elena was not convinced. This could still be a stolen card. A very good stolen card. She picked up the phone and dialed the bank's verification line, keeping her voice low. Hello, this is Elena Rivera from the Sterling Grand Hotel. I need to verify a transaction. She whispered the card numbers, keeping one eye on Daniel, who was now pretending to study a tourist brochure about the Statue of Liberty. Yes, I will hold. The hold music played. Elena watched the man. He seemed completely relaxed, too relaxed for someone using a stolen card, unless he was a very good actor. Yes, she said into the phone. I see. And Mr. Sterling is, yes, VIP client. Credit limit is, her voice rose slightly. There is not one, I understand, thank you. Thank God? She hung up slowly and looked at Daniel Sterling with an expression somewhere between confusion and suspicion. Everything went through? He asked innocently. Yes, Elena said. It did. Wonderful. But I still need you to sign a few documents to confirm your signature matches. Over the next 5 minutes, Elena had Daniel Sterling sign the registration form, then a liability waiver, then a hotel policy acknowledgement. With each signature, she carefully compared the handwriting to his driver's license, frowning like a detective who had just discovered a crucial clue but could not quite make sense of it. One more thing, she said, pulling out her phone. I need a photo for our security records. Standard procedure for our premium guests. Daniel patiently posed while Elena took 3 photos with her flash on, each time examining the result as if she were documenting evidence for a future trial. All set, she finally said, handing him a key card. The suite is on the top floor. The elevators are just past the concierge desk. Thank you, Elena, Daniel said, reading her name tag. You have been very thorough. Before she could respond, a voice interrupted. Elena, is everything all right? She turned to see Robert Wagner approaching with his professional general manager smile. Robert was 58, silver-haired, always impeccably dressed. He had been running the Sterling Grand for 15 years and knew every VIP guest by name. No problem at all, Mr. Wagner, Elena said. Just checking in, Mr. Sterling. Robert's reaction was immediate. His eyebrows shot up. His smile shifted from polite to genuinely warm. He stepped forward quickly, hand extended. Mr. Sterling, Robert said, with a respect that made Elena do a double take. What a pleasure to have you back. How was your trip? Daniel shook Robert's hand. It was eye-opening, Robert. Very different from what I am used to. I can imagine, Robert said, and he actually laughed as if they were sharing a private joke. Elena watched this exchange with growing confusion. Robert treated guests well, but this level of familiarity was unusual. He only used first names with the most important visitors: movie stars, politicians, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. If there is anything you need, Robert continued, anything at all, please do not hesitate to ask. Elena cleared her throat. Mr. Wagner, may I speak to you for a moment? Privately? Robert looked surprised but nodded. Elena pulled him a few steps away, lowering her voice to an urgent whisper. Be careful with him. He might be a very skilled scammer. Robert blinked. I'm sorry? The card went through, yes, but look at him. Elena gestured subtly toward Daniel, who was now admiring a flower arrangement, his worn backpack still on his shoulders. Something feels off. Robert followed her gaze. Daniel Sterling, one of the wealthiest men in America, stood there examining a lily as if he had never seen a flower before. Elena, Robert said slowly, carefully, do you know who that man is? A very lucky lottery winner? Elena guessed. Someone who came into money recently and has not learned how to dress appropriately yet? Robert opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked like a man trying to explain quantum physics to someone who still counted on their fingers. Robert paused. He won the lottery. Yes, that is one way to put it. Across the lobby, Daniel had caught part of this conversation. Won the lottery. He smiled to himself. Why not? It was easier than explaining billions in inheritance and investments. Yes, Daniel called over, walking back toward them. The lottery. Still getting used to all of this. He gestured vaguely at the elegant lobby, the crystal chandeliers, the marble floors. Elena nodded, satisfied that her theory was correct. It made perfect sense. A lottery winner. Winner, new to wealth, not yet accustomed to dressing for upscale places, probably bought the first credit card the bank offered him without understanding the responsibility that came with it. Well, Mr. Sterling, Robert said, still processing the entire situation with barely concealed amusement, congratulations on your winnings. If you need any advice about investing or... Actually, Elena interrupted, feeling suddenly responsible for this man's financial future. I've already given him a few basic tips, things people with sudden wealth should know. Daniel pressed his lips together to keep from laughing. Elena has been very helpful. I am sure, Robert muttered, glancing between them like he was watching a play and could not quite believe the plot. Your suite is ready, Mr. Sterling, Elena said, returning to her professional tone. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10. Room service is available 24 hours, and... She hesitated. If you need help with anything, I am always here. There was sincerity in her voice that touched something deep in Daniel's chest. This woman, who thought he was a newly rich man stumbling through unfamiliar territory, genuinely wanted to help him. Thank you, Elena, he said, and he meant it more than she could possibly know. Really, thank you. As Daniel walked toward the elevators, his backpack slung over one shoulder, moving far too casually for someone heading to a $3,000 suite, Elena turned to Robert. Keep an eye on him, she whispered. New lottery winners are easy targets for scammers. Robert nodded slowly, still trying to process the fact that one of the wealthiest men in the country had just been mistaken for a homeless lottery winner by his own employee. I will keep my eyes open, Robert promised. The elevator doors closed on Daniel Sterling. He finally allowed himself to smile. 3 weeks in the Colorado mountains had given him perspective on his gilded life. But Elena Rivera had just given him something even more valuable. The experience of being treated like a regular person. Someone who needed help. Someone who deserved kindness not because of his bank account, but simply because he was human. Robert pulled out his phone as soon as Elena returned to the front desk. He typed a quick message to his assistant manager. Boss is back. Looks like he hiked through a wilderness. Elena thinks he is a homeless lottery winner. Do not blow his cover. This is going to be interesting. Upstairs in the presidential suite, Daniel dropped his backpack on the floor and walked to the window. Manhattan stretched out below him, a canyon of steel and glass and ambition. He owned pieces of it. Buildings, hotels, businesses. 44 hotels worldwide, actually, including the one he was standing in. But none of that had made him feel as warm as Elena Rivera offering him $5 for a sandwich. His phone buzzed, a text from his son Nathan. "Dad, where are you? Emma is asking for you." Daniel typed back, "In the city. Tell her grandpa will see her soon." Another buzz. His CFO. "Board meeting scheduled for Friday. Quarterly reports need review." Daniel ignored that one. He had spent 30 years in board meetings. Right now he wanted to see what happened when a 52-year-old hotel manager decided to teach a 56-year-old billionaire how to be a person. He looked at his reflection in the window. 3 weeks of beard, messy hair, clothes that belonged in a donation bin. No wonder she had offered him money. But she had offered it. That was the point. Not out of pity, but out of genuine human concern. When was the last time someone had looked at him and seen only a person who needed help? Daniel made a decision. He would not reveal his identity yet. Not immediately. He wanted to exist in Elena Rivera's world a little longer. A world where kindness mattered more than credit limits. Where a $5 bill offered freely was worth more than a $3,000 suite. He pulled out his phone and called the hotel's housekeeping department. "This is Daniel Sterling in the presidential suite. Could you please send up some basic supplies? Razor, shaving cream, basic toiletries. Thank you." Then he called room service. "Could I have a simple sandwich sent up? Turkey maybe, nothing fancy." The room service manager sounded confused. Guests in the presidential suite usually ordered oysters and champagne. "Just a sandwich, sir?" "Just a sandwich," Daniel confirmed, "and maybe some hot tea, thank you." He sat down on the $1,000 couch and pulled the $5 bill from his pocket. Elena's lunch money. He smoothed it out, creased and worn. He had given away millions to charity over the years. Written checks that could buy houses, cars, college educations. But this $5 felt heavier than all of them. He tucked it into his wallet, next to a photo of his late wife, Catherine. She would have liked Elena, he thought. Catherine had always said that Daniel's problem was not that he had too much money, but that he had forgotten what it felt like to need anything. "Maybe I am about to remember," Daniel said to the empty suite. Far below in the lobby, Elena was telling her best friend Beverly about the strange lottery winner who had just checked in. Beverly Chen was 55, head concierge, and had been Elena's friend for 12 years. She was practical, funny, and never sugar-coated anything. "So let me get this straight," Beverly said, leaning against the concierge desk. "A man who looks homeless walks in, you offer him $5, and he books the presidential suite." "Exactly. And Robert knows him?" "Treated him like royalty." Beverly raised an eyebrow. "Did you Google him?" "Google him?" Elena looked shocked. "Beverly, that would be invading his privacy." "Honey, he is staying in your hotel, under his real name. That is called public information." But Elena shook her head. "He deserves the benefit of the doubt. New money is hard. He probably feels out of place. Lost. I want to help him adjust." Beverly studied her friend with the expression of someone watching a train heading toward a cliff. "You know what? You do that. Help him adjust. This should be entertaining." That night, Elena rode the train back to Queens. Her apartment was small but comfortable. Photos of Marcus covered one wall. Their wedding picture faded at the edges. Marcus in his doorman uniform, proud and handsome. The two of them with baby Lucy, pink-faced and perfect. Elena made herself tea and sat at her small kitchen table. She pulled out a notepad and began writing. "Survival guide for the newly rich," she wrote at the top. Then she crossed it out and wrote instead, "Basic guide, how not to look poor in fancy places." The list grew quickly. She had learned these things from Marcus, who had worked at luxury hotels for 20 years. She had refined them during her own 2 decades at the Sterling Grand. These were the invisible rules that separated people who belonged in 5-star hotels from people who were just visiting. Never wear flip-flops in the lobby or any public area. Do not ask for discounts at the front desk, even if the prices seem too high. Use utensils for everything, even pizza if dining in upscale restaurants. Always greet staff politely, but do not get too personal. Do not photograph your food. That screams first time here. Never ask how much things cost at restaurants. If you have to ask, you should not be there. Dress appropriately for the venue. No torn clothing at dinner. Elena read over her list with satisfaction. Tomorrow she would give it to Mr. Sterling. She would help him navigate this new world of wealth. She would make sure he did not embarrass himself or waste his lottery money on foolish things. Marcus would have approved, she thought. He had always said that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, but dignity also means helping people rise to their best selves. She looked at Marcus's photo. 3 years since the car accident. 3 years of waking up alone. 3 years of going through motions, pretending to be fine, keeping busy so she would not have to feel the emptiness. Her daughter Lucy had called earlier from Seattle. "Mom, when are you coming to visit? I am 7 months along. I want you here before the baby comes." "Soon, honey," Elena had promised. "Work is busy right now." But work was not busy. Work was an excuse. Seattle meant staying in Lucy's small apartment, being the mother-in-law who got in the way, feeling like a burden instead of a help. And worse, it meant admitting that her life in New York had become hollow. That she stayed not because she loved it, but because she was afraid to leave. Maybe helping Daniel Sterling was a way to feel useful again, to have a purpose beyond checking people into hotel rooms and going home to an empty apartment. Elena finished her tea. She went to bed in the same double bed she had shared with Marcus. His side was still made, pillows fluffed, as if he might come home any moment. "I met someone interesting today," she said to the empty room. "Do not worry, it is not like that. I am just trying to help him." But something in her voice suggested that maybe, just maybe, it was a little bit like that. Across the city, in a presidential suite that cost more per night than Elena made in a week, Daniel Sterling lay in a bed big enough for 4 people and stared at the ceiling. He thought about his late wife, Catherine. 4 years since cancer had taken her. 4 years of running, hiking, traveling, avoiding the penthouse apartment in Boston that still smelled like her perfume, avoiding his son Nathan, who reminded him too much of his own failures as a father, avoiding his granddaughter Emma, whose innocent questions about where Grandma went hurt too much to answer. He had built an empire, 44 hotels, billions in assets, but he had done it by missing Catherine's last year of life, by prioritizing mergers over her medical appointments, by telling himself he could always make time later, never realizing that later would never come. "I met someone today," Daniel said to the dark room. "She thought I was homeless. She gave me $5. If Catherine were here, she would have laughed. She would have said that this was exactly what Daniel needed. A reality check. A reminder that beneath the suits and the boardrooms and the private jets, he was just a person." "I think I will stay a while," Daniel continued. "See what happens. Is that okay?" The silence gave no answer, but somehow it felt like permission. Daniel closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would let Elena Rivera teach him how to be human again. Even though he was probably more qualified to teach her about the hotel business than she could imagine. But maybe that was the point. Maybe he had forgotten the basics. How to connect. How to care about individuals instead of demographics. How to see $5 as a gift instead of pocket change. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, Daniel dreamed of something he had not dreamed about in years. He dreamed of being happy. The next morning arrived with the kind of gray November light that made Manhattan look like an old photograph. Elena woke at 5:30, the same time she had woken every day for 20 years. Her body clock no longer needed an alarm. She moved through her morning routine with practiced efficiency, making coffee she barely tasted, dressing in her burgundy blazer and black slacks, checking her reflection to make sure the cracks did not show. On the train to Manhattan, she reviewed the list she had made the night before. Her handwriting was neat, precise, the handwriting of someone who believed that organization could protect you from chaos. She folded the paper and tucked it into her purse, already planning how she would approach Daniel Sterling. Be kind, she reminded herself. Be helpful. Do not make him feel embarrassed about his lack of knowledge. Everyone deserves dignity. The Sterling Grand Lobby was quiet at 7 in the morning. The breakfast service had just begun in the restaurant. A few early rising businessmen sat reading newspapers. The night shift was transitioning to day shift, bellhops exchanging notes about late checkouts and early departures. Elena went straight to her desk. She logged into the computer system and checked on Daniel Sterling's reservation. Still there. Presidential suite for an open-ended stay. No checkout date listed. Beverly arrived at 7:30, holding 2 coffees from the corner deli. "So," Beverly said, setting 1 cup in front of Elena, "did your lottery winner survive the night? Or did he panic when he saw the room service prices and climb out the window?" "He is still here," Elena said. "Have you Googled him yet?" Beverly, "It is a simple internet search. You type his name, you press enter, you learn if he is wanted in 3 states." Elena shook her head. "I am going to help him, not investigate him." Beverly sipped her coffee and said nothing, but her expression suggested she was watching a movie and already knew how it would end. At 9:30, Daniel appeared in the lobby. He had shaved. The thick beard was gone, revealing a strong jaw and a face that was, Elena had to admit, quite handsome. His hair was still damp from a shower. He wore the same worn jeans and flannel shirt from yesterday, but they looked cleaner somehow. He carried his backpack, but it was lighter, nearly empty. Elena felt her heart do something unexpected. A small flutter. She pushed it down immediately. This was not attraction. This was simply appreciation for good bone structure. Completely professional. Daniel spotted her and smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Good morning, Elena." "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months," he said, and it sounded true. "I wanted to thank you again for your kindness yesterday. The $5, that meant more than you know." Elena waved it away. "It was nothing." "It was everything," Daniel said quietly. They stood there for a moment, and Elena felt something pass between them. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. 2 people who carried sadness like a second skin. "Mr. Sterling," Elena began, pulling out her folded list, "I made something for you, some guidelines, to help you adjust to your new financial situation." Daniel took the paper. His eyes scanned the title. "Basic Guide, How Not to Look Poor in Fancy Places." "I hope you do not find it offensive," Elena said quickly. "I just thought, since you are new to all this, you might appreciate some advice about navigating luxury establishments." Daniel read through the list. His face remained neutral, but his eyes sparkled with barely contained amusement. "Never wear flip-flops in the lobby. Use utensils for everything, even pizza. Do not photograph your food." He looked up. "This is very thorough. I have worked in hotels for 20 years. I have seen a lot of people make expensive mistakes." "I appreciate it," Daniel said. "Would you be willing to give me some practical lessons? Show me how to implement these rules?" Elena hesitated. This felt personal in a way that went beyond her job description, but something about Daniel Sterling made her want to say yes. Maybe it was the loneliness she sensed in him. Maybe it was the way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person he had met in years. "I suppose I could help during my lunch break," Elena said, "if you are available." "I am completely available." Behind them, Beverly made a small sound that might have been a cough or might have been a warning. At noon, Elena met Daniel in the hotel restaurant, Lumiere. It was an elegant space with white tablecloths and heavy silverware and waiters who moved like dancers. The lunch crowd was sparse. A few business meetings, a couple celebrating an anniversary, mostly empty tables waiting for the dinner rush. Jacques, the head sommelier, greeted them with a professional smile that faltered slightly when he saw Danielle. Jacques had worked at the Sterling Grand for 12 years. He knew Daniel Sterling the way a priest knows God. "Good afternoon," Jacques said carefully. "A table for 2? "Yes, please," Elena said. "Somewhere quiet. This is an educational lunch." Jacques led them to a corner table. He handed them menus with the reverence of someone presenting ancient scrolls. "I will give you a moment to decide," Jacques said, his French accent thicker than usual. He caught Daniel's eye. Daniel gave a tiny shake of his head. "Not yet. Do not blow my cover." When Jacques left, Elena leaned forward. "Today, we are going to practice rule number 3. Use utensils for everything, even pizza." "Even pizza?" Daniel asked, as if this was the most absurd thing he had ever heard. "Especially pizza. Rich people eat pizza with a fork and knife always. It shows refinement." Daniel pressed his lips together. "I see. Trust me, this is important." When Jacques returned to take their order, Elena requested a margarita pizza and 2 sparkling waters. Perhaps some wine, Jacques suggested, already mentally reaching for the Chateau d'Yquem that Daniel loved. Something democratic, please, Elena said firmly. A nice Bordeaux, nothing too expensive. Jacques blinked. In 12 years of serving Daniel Sterling, he had never heard anyone request a democratic wine. The word itself seemed wrong in this context, like asking for a socialist entree or a communist dessert. Of course, Jacques managed. A Bordeaux. He retreated to the kitchen, where the entire staff was watching on the security monitors. The head chef had already texted Robert Wagner. Boss is being taught table manners by front desk. Please advise. Robert had texted back, do not interfere. This is the most fun he has had in years. The pizza arrived 15 minutes later, perfectly charred, fragrant with basil and mozzarella. It sat on fine china between them like an exam they both had to pass. Elena picked up her fork and knife. Now watch. You cut from the outer edge inward. Small bites. Always small bites. She demonstrated slicing a delicate triangle of pizza, lifting it to her mouth with perfect precision. Daniel followed her instructions. He cut his pizza with surgical focus. He chewed slowly, thoughtfully, as if analyzing the molecular composition of tomato sauce. Excellent, Elena said. You are a natural. At the next table, two investment bankers stopped their conversation to stare. One pulled out his phone and took a discreet photo. By evening, it would be circulating in group chats. Is that Daniel Sterling eating pizza with a knife and fork? But Daniel did not notice or did not care. He was watching Elena, the way she moved, the grace in her gestures, the warmth in her eyes when she smiled. She had no idea who he was, and that made every moment feel honest. Can I ask you something personal? Daniel said. Elena looked up from her pizza. Of course. Why are you helping me? You do not know me. I could be anyone. She considered this. My late husband used to say that kindness costs nothing but means everything. He worked as a doorman. He saw people at their best and worst. He taught me that everyone deserves dignity, regardless of their circumstances. Your husband sounds like a wise man. He was. Elena's voice softened. He died 3 years ago. Car accident. I'm sorry. Thank you. She took a sip of water. What about you? You said you were getting used to your new situation. But you seem lonely. Are you alone? Daniel paused. How much truth could he tell without revealing everything? My wife died 4 years ago, he said finally. Cancer. I have a son, Nathan, and a granddaughter, Emma. But we are not as close as we should be. Elena's expression shifted. Sadness gave way to understanding. Two people recognizing themselves in each other. I have a daughter, Lucy, Elena said. She lives in Seattle. Married, expecting her first baby in April. She wants me to visit, but I keep finding excuses not to go. Why? Because if I go, I will have to admit that my life here is hollow. That I stay not because I love it, but because I am afraid to leave. The honesty hung between them like a confession. I understand that, Daniel said. I have been traveling for 2 years. Different cities, different countries, running from an empty apartment that still smells like her perfume. Jacques arrived to clear their plates. He saw their faces and retreated quietly, moved by something he could not name. We are quite a pair, Elena said, attempting lightness. Two lost people teaching each other how to pretend we are fine. Maybe we do not have to pretend, Daniel said. Maybe we could just be honest. Elena met his eyes. Something passed between them. Not quite attraction, not quite friendship. Something deeper and more fragile. Her phone buzzed, a text from Beverly. Boss wants to see you, now. Elena excused herself and found Robert Wagner waiting near the lobby elevators. Elena, Robert said, I need to talk to you about your new friend. Mr. Sterling? He is perfectly nice. He is more than nice. He is... Robert struggled for words. He is complicated. Complicated how? Just be careful. Not everyone is who they seem. Elena frowned. Do you know something I do not? Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. He had promised Daniel he would not interfere. But watching Elena fall for a man who was lying by omission felt wrong. Just Google him, Robert said finally, before this goes any further. That evening, Elena sat in her small apartment with her laptop open, Lucy was on video chat, 7 months pregnant, glowing despite her swollen ankles. Mom, just Google him. You have his full name. That feels like violating his privacy. Mom, Google him now. Elena looked at her daughter's face on the screen. When had Lucy grown so insistent? When had their roles reversed, with the daughter giving the mother advice? Fine, Elena said, but only because you are nagging me. She opened a new browser window, typed slowly as if the keyboard might explode. Daniel Sterling. She pressed enter. The screen flooded with results. Daniel Sterling, CEO Sterling Hospitality Group. Forbes, net worth $8.2 billion. Sterling Hotels owns 44 properties worldwide. The coffee cup Elena was holding slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the hardwood floor, brown liquid spreading like a stain on her careful life. Mom? Lucy's voice came through the computer speakers. Mom, are you okay? But Elena could not speak. She was scrolling through images. Daniel Sterling in a perfectly tailored suit at a charity gala. Daniel Sterling shaking hands with the mayor. Daniel Sterling cutting a ribbon at a hotel opening in Dubai. Daniel Sterling on the cover of Fortune magazine. The man who redefined luxury hospitality. And then she saw it, a photo from 3 years ago. Daniel Sterling at the Sterling Grand Hotel, her hotel, standing in the lobby with Robert Wagner and a group of executives. The caption read, Sterling celebrates 15th anniversary of flagship Manhattan property. Her hotel. He owned her hotel. She had offered $5 to a man who could buy the entire building with pocket change. She had taught table manners to a man who probably dined with presidents. She had made him a guide on how not to look poor. The humiliation crashed over her like a wave. Every moment from the past 2 days replayed in her mind, but now distorted, mocking. Him pretending to be grateful for her advice. Him going along with her ridiculous pizza lesson. The entire staff watching, knowing, probably laughing. Mom? Lucy's voice was worried now. Talk to me. He lied, Elena whispered. He let me make a complete fool of myself. Maybe there is an explanation. The explanation is that I was entertainment. Poor Elena teaching the billionaire how to use a fork. She found another article. Vanity Fair from 6 months ago. Why the ultra-rich are slumming, the new trend among billionaires. The article described wealthy people going undercover, pretending to be poor, experiencing life from the other side. Social experiments, adventures in poverty tourism. Elena's stomach turned. Her phone rang. Daniel's number. The hotel had his contact information in the system. She declined the call. He called again. She turned off her phone. Mom, Lucy said gently, maybe you should talk to him. What is there to say? He made me part of his game. Or maybe he was lonely. Maybe he wanted someone to treat him like a person. Elena shook her head. I do not have time for maybes. I am 52 years old, Lucy. My husband died 3 years ago. I finally opened my heart a tiny bit. And this is what happens. She closed the laptop, sat in the dark apartment, let the tears come. Across the city, Daniel Sterling stared at his phone. 6 calls, all declined. He knew what had happened. She had Googled him. The truth was out. The beautiful, fragile thing they had been building had shattered before it even had a chance to become real. He typed a text. Elena, please let me explain. Deleted it. Typed again. I never meant to hurt you. Deleted it. Finally sent. I am sorry, I should have told you. Can we talk? The message showed as delivered but not read. Daniel stood at the window of the presidential suite, looking down at the city that never slept. Somewhere down there, Elena Rivera was learning to hate him, and he could not blame her. His phone rang. Nathan, Dad, I need you. Jennifer served divorce papers. It is really happening. Daniel closed his eyes, his son's marriage falling apart. His own chance at connection destroyed. Everything he touched seemed to crumble. I will be there tomorrow, Daniel said. We will figure this out. After he hung up, Daniel did something he had not done in 4 years. He cried, not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place he had kept locked since Catherine died. The next morning was Thanksgiving Eve. The Sterling Grand bustled with guests arriving for the holiday, families checking in with children and luggage, elderly couples holding hands. The lobby smelled like cinnamon and anticipation. Elena arrived early, her eyes red but her expression composed. She had cried all night. Now there were no tears left, only a hollow ache where hope used to live. Beverly took one look at her and said, "You Googled him?" "I Googled him." "Oh, honey, I do not want to talk about it." But the universe had other plans. At 10 in the morning, Robert Wagner approached her desk with a formal expression. "Elena, Mr. Sterling has requested your presence at the staff Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow." "Absolutely not. It was not a request. As your employer, he would like you to attend." Elena's jaw tightened. "So now he is pulling rank?" "He said he understands if you are angry, but he is hoping you will give him a chance to apologize in person." "Tell Mr. Sterling that I respectfully decline." Robert sighed. "Elena, I have known Daniel for 15 years. He is not a bad man. He is a liar. He is lonely. There is a difference." Before Elena could respond, the elevator doors opened. A small figure emerged. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, with dark curls and enormous brown eyes. She wore a purple dress and carried a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Behind her came a man in his early 30s, expensive suit, exhausted face. He was talking urgently on his phone. "Jennifer, please. We can work this out. Do not do this before Thanksgiving." The little girl looked around the lobby with wonder. Then she spotted Elena at the front desk. Something about Elena's face, warm despite her sadness, drew the child forward. "Excuse me," the little girl said politely. "Are you a princess?" Elena blinked. The first genuine smile in 12 hours crossed her face. "No, sweetheart, just a hotel worker." "You look like a princess, like from my storybook." The man on the phone turned. "Emma, do not bother the staff." But Emma was already climbing onto a chair next to Elena's desk. "What is your name?" "Elena." "I am Emma. That is my daddy. He is sad because mommy does not want to live with us anymore." The man, Nathan, winced. "Emma, we talked about this." Elena's heart broke a little. This child, so small, carrying adult pain in her innocent voice. "I am sorry to hear that," Elena said gently. "Divorce is hard." "What is divorce?" "It is when two people who love each other decide they will be happier apart." Emma considered this. "But if they love each other, why do they go apart?" "Sometimes love is not enough," Elena said, and she was not just talking to the child anymore. The elevator opened again. Daniel stepped out. He saw Nathan. He saw Emma. He saw Elena. Time seemed to stop. "Grandpa!" Emma shrieked and launched herself off the chair. Daniel caught her, lifting her into his arms. "Hello, my sweet girl." Then his eyes met Elena's. She stood frozen behind the desk, understanding dawning on her face. "This is Emma," Daniel said quietly. "My granddaughter. And my son, Nathan." Nathan stepped forward, hand extended. "Nathan Sterling, nice to meet you." Elena shook his hand mechanically. She felt like she was watching a play, not living her life. "Nathan had an emergency," Daniel explained. "His wife is leaving him. He needs family right now. So Emma is staying with me for a while." Emma tugged Daniel's collar. "Grandpa, can we have Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow? Like a real family?" "I do not know, sweetheart. Please, Daddy is sad and Mommy is gone and I want a real Thanksgiving with turkey and everything." Daniel looked at Elena. "The hotel hosts a Thanksgiving dinner for staff tomorrow. We were hoping you might join us." "I," Elena started. "Please," Emma said, her eyes enormous. "You seem nice. How do you say no to a 5-year-old whose world is falling apart?" "I will think about it," Elena said. That was not a yes, but it was not a no either. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright. Elena dressed carefully in a navy dress and pearls. She told herself she was going to the staff dinner because Robert had asked her to, not because Daniel would be there, not because Emma's sad eyes had haunted her dreams. The hotel banquet room had been transformed, long tables covered with white cloths, centerpieces of autumn leaves and candles. The smell of roasting turkey filled the air. 40 staff members gathered with their families, grateful for a place to celebrate together. Elena arrived late, hoping to slip in unnoticed, but Emma saw her immediately. "Princess Elena!" the little girl shouted, waving frantically. Every head turned. Elena had no choice but to walk to where Daniel and Nathan sat with Emma between them. "You came," Daniel said quietly. "I came for Emma. I will take what I can get." The dinner began with Robert Wagner standing to welcome everyone. He spoke about gratitude and family and how the Sterling Grand was more than a workplace. It was a community. Then came the tradition. Each person at each table shared something they were thankful for. An elderly housekeeper gave thanks for 30 years of employment. A young bellhop gave thanks for the scholarship the hotel had funded. A chef gave thanks for the staff that felt like family. When it came to Emma's turn, the little girl stood on her chair. "I am thankful for Grandpa Daniel and Princess Elena. They make me feel like I have a family even though Mommy and Daddy are fighting." Adults around the table exchanged glances. Some smiled, some looked sad. Daniel's turn came next. "I am thankful for second chances," he said, looking directly at Elena, "and for people who see past surfaces to the person underneath." Elena felt her resolve weakening. She had come here angry, determined to stay cold. But seeing Daniel with his granddaughter, seeing the genuine pain in Nathan's eyes, hearing the brokenness in their family, made her anger feel small and selfish. When her turn came, Elena stood. "I am thankful for truth," she said, her voice steady, "even when it comes late, even when it hurts." Daniel flinched, but he did not look away. After dinner, after the pie and coffee and small talk, Daniel asked Elena if they could speak privately. They ended up on the same rooftop terrace where they had dinner just days before. The string lights glowed softly. The city sparkled below them. It was beautiful and heartbreaking. "I am sorry," Daniel said. "I should have told you immediately who I was." "Why did you not?" "Because for the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw a person. Not a bank account, not a CEO, just a man who needed help." Elena crossed her arms. "So you decided to play pretend? Let me humiliate myself?" "It was not like that." "What was it like then?" Daniel struggled for words. "Have you ever felt invisible? Like you exist, but no one really sees you?" "Every day since Marcus died," Elena said quietly. "Catherine died 4 years ago. Since then, everyone looks at me and sees money, power, opportunity. But you looked at me and saw someone who was hungry, someone who needed kindness. I was an idiot. You were human, and you reminded me how to be human too." Elena turned away from him, staring at the city lights. "I taught you how to eat pizza with a fork. I gave you $5 for a sandwich. I made you a list about how not to look poor." "I kept that list," Daniel said. "It is in my wallet right now." "Why?" "Because it is the most valuable thing anyone has given me in years." Elena felt tears threatening. She was angry, but beneath the anger was something else. Something that felt dangerously close to understanding. "You let me think you were a lottery winner. You assumed that. I just did not correct you. That is still lying." "You are right, it is, and I am sorry." They stood in silence. The wind carried the smell of someone's fireplace. Somewhere in the city, families were laughing over leftover turkey. Somewhere, people were happy. "Your granddaughter is sweet," Elena said finally. "She loves you. She asked me if you could be her grandmother. She does not even know me." "Children see clearly sometimes." "She knows you have a kind heart." Elena turned back to face him. "Daniel, I cannot do this. Whatever this is, I am 52 years old. I do not have time for games or complicated situations. I am not asking you for anything. Just a chance to be your friend. To know you honestly. I do not know if I can trust you." "Then let me earn it." Elena studied his face, the lines around his eyes that spoke of long years and deep sorrows, the gray in his hair that matched her own, the sadness she recognized because she carried it too. "How?" she asked. "I do not know yet, but I will figure it out." And despite everything, despite the lays and the hurt, Elena found herself wanting to believe him. Leonard Goldstein's bookstore occupied a narrow slice of Brooklyn that smelled like possibility and old paper. The afternoon light came through dusty windows, casting long shadows across stacks that seemed to defy gravity. Daniel Sterling stood behind the counter, his hands ink-stained, trying to make the ancient cash register cooperate with reality. A customer approached, middle-aged woman, expensive coat, The kind of person who usually made Daniel feel comfortable. Now she made him nervous. "Excuse me, do you have anything by Toni Morrison?" Daniel's mind went blank. He knew the name. Had probably met her at some literary event years ago, but which books? Where were they shelved? "Let me check our system," he said, fingers hovering over the keyboard he still did not fully understand. The woman waited with diminishing patience. The bell above the door chimed. Elena entered, brushing snow from her coat. She took in the scene immediately, the way someone fluent in disaster recognizes its early stages. "Morrison is in literary fiction, second aisle, third shelf," Elena said smoothly, moving past Daniel. "We have Beloved, Song of Solomon, and The Bluest Eye. Have you read her before?" The customer's face relaxed. "I read Beloved in college, changed my life." "Then try Song of Solomon. Different tone, but equally powerful." The woman followed Elena toward the stacks, leaving Daniel alone with his incompetence. Leonard emerged from the back office, arms full of inventory sheets. He was 64, white-haired, perpetually surprised by the world's refusal to make sense. "Your friend is a natural," Leonard said, watching Elena guide the customer through shelving options. "You, on the other hand, are terrible at this." "I know. The register hates you. The customers confuse you. Yesterday you shelved all the poetry in the cooking section." "That was an accident." "I'm not firing you," Leonard continued, as if Daniel had not spoken, "but only because you show up every morning looking like a man doing penance. Also because you fixed the leak in the bathroom without being asked, and you don't complain when I pay you $12 an hour to do work that's clearly destroying your back." Daniel straightened, feeling muscles protest. Manual labor was humbling in ways his gym sessions never were. Elena returned, the customer trailing behind with 3 books. Daniel attempted the transaction again, punching keys with exaggerated care. The register beeped acceptance. Small victories. After the woman left, Elena faced him across the counter. "You're really terrible at this. Everyone keeps telling me. Why are you still here?" "Because I told you I would earn your trust. This is me earning it." Elena's expression softened slightly, like ice beginning to thaw. "You could just apologize again." "Words are cheap. Anyone can apologize. Not everyone shows up at 7 in the morning to get humiliated by a cash register." Leonard was watching them with the satisfied expression of someone who understood the story better than its participants. "I'm making tea," he announced. "Both of you, office now." The office was barely larger than a closet, dominated by a desk drowning in paperwork. Leonard poured tea from a kettle that predated the Clinton administration. "Elena, Daniel needs a better teacher. I'm old and impatient. You're young and only moderately impatient. I'm 52, that's not young. It's young enough. Teach him properly, make him useful or make him leave." Daniel looked between them. "I can pay for lessons." "See, that's your problem," Elena said. "You think money solves everything." "I don't think that anymore." "Then prove it." For the next week, Elena arrived at the bookstore every evening after her hotel shift ended. She was relentless, patient, exacting. Daniel learned to read inventory sheets, anticipate customer needs, understand that every person who entered wanted more than books. They wanted connection, escape, recognition. On Wednesday, a teenager came in looking for something his English teacher would approve of, but wouldn't bore him into a coma. "Try this," Daniel said, handing him the Outsiders. "It's assigned reading in some schools, so your teacher will be happy. But it's actually good, about loyalty and loss and figuring out who you are when the world tells you you're nothing." The kid bought it, left almost smiling. Elena had watched the entire exchange. "That was good. I read it last night after you mentioned it." "You're doing homework?" "I'm doing whatever it takes." Something shifted in her eyes, not forgiveness yet, but acknowledgement. The wall between them developed a crack. Thursday brought Nathan and Emma. The little girl bursted through the door like contained chaos, making directly for the children's section she had discovered on previous visits. Nathan looked worse. Unshaven, wrinkled suit, eyes that had given up on sleep. "Jennifer's lawyer sent papers," he said without preamble. "Full custody. She wants to move Emma to Connecticut, limit my visits to supervised weekends." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "On what grounds?" "Neglect, emotional unavailability, being exactly like my father." The words landed like physical blows. Elena moved toward Nathan with the instinct of someone who understood parental fear. That's not you. You're here, aren't you? Showing up. I'm here because I don't know where else to go. My apartment feels like a mausoleum. My office is full of people who want things from me. This bookstore is the only place that feels real. Emma called from the children's corner. Daddy, come read with me. Nathan went, his shoulders carrying weight no 32-year-old should bear. Elena turned to Daniel. You need to help him. I don't know how. I ruined my own marriage by choosing work over Catherine. Now Nathan's marriage is ending because he made the same choice. I'm the last person who should give advice. Then don't give advice. Just be his father. I don't know how to do that either. Yes, you do. You're here, aren't you? Working minimum wage in a bookstore because you're trying to prove something to a woman who's still deciding whether to forgive you. That's showing up. That's what Nathan needs to see. Daniel walked to the children's section. Nathan sat cross-legged on the floor, Emma in his lap, reading Goodnight Moon with a voice that kept breaking on certain words. Daniel sat down beside them. Father, son, granddaughter. 3 generations of sterling men who had forgotten how to be present until loss taught them. I messed up your childhood, Daniel said quietly. Nathan looked at him, surprised. They did not do honest conversations. They did business updates and surface pleasantries. I chose board meetings over your baseball games, conference calls over your graduation, building an empire over building a relationship with my son. Daniel's voice was steady, but his hand shook. I told myself I was providing for you, securing your future, but I was just scared. Scared of what? Of being poor again. My father was a construction worker who broke his back for minimum wage and died with nothing. I swore I would be different. I would have money, security, power. I would never be vulnerable. And instead, you were alone. Instead, I was alone. Daniel looked at Emma, absorbed in her book. Don't make my mistakes. Fight for your family. Be present, even if it means failing at work, even if it means looking weak, even if it costs everything. This matters more. Nathan's eyes filled. What if it's too late? It's only too late when you stop trying. Elena watched from across the store, her own eyes damp. Leonard handed her a tissue. That man was a ghost when he walked in here 3 weeks ago, Leonard said. You're bringing him back to life. I think Emma's bringing him back. I'm just watching. Don't sell yourself short. He looks at you like you're oxygen. Friday evening, Elena was cataloging new arrivals when Daniel's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. I need to take this. He stepped outside into December cold. Through the window, Elena watched him pace, one hand pressed to his forehead in the universal gesture of receiving bad news. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral. Too neutral. My board scheduled an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. They want me back. Back? Running the company. They've made a mess of things in the months I've been absent. Stock prices falling, 2 properties in litigation, a merger collapsing. What did you tell them? That I would think about it. That's a lie. Daniel met her eyes. Yes. You're going back. I don't know yet. Daniel, I've known you long enough to read your face. You're already gone. He started to protest, then stopped. The company is Catherine's legacy. She helped build it. Walking away feels like betraying her memory. And staying here feels like betraying yourself. I don't know who I am anymore. CEO felt like identity. But being here, working for $12 an hour, learning about books and customers and showing up, this feels more real than anything I did in 30 years of boardrooms. You have to choose. What if I choose wrong? Elena closed the book she was holding. 3 years ago, my husband died. I could have stayed in Boston, near our memories. Instead, I came to New York. I chose to keep living, even though every day felt like walking through glass. I chose wrong 1,000 times. But I kept choosing. How did you know when you finally chose right? I didn't. I'm still figuring it out. The bell chimed. Beverly entered, expensive coat and knowing expression. Sorry to interrupt. Elena, Lucy called the hotel looking for you. The baby's coming early. She's in labor. Elena's hand went to her mouth. She's only 36 weeks. Doctors say it's fine. But she wants her mother. There's a flight tomorrow morning at 6. Daniel was already pulling out his phone. I'll arrange a car to the airport. First class ticket. Daniel, I can't afford first class. I can. Please let me do this. Their eyes met. Elena nodded. Beverly was watching with the expression of someone witnessing something significant. I'll cover your hotel shifts. Go be a grandmother. After Beverly left, Daniel and Elena stood among the books, surrounded by other people's stories. I'll be gone at least a week, Elena said. I know. When I come back, you might be gone. Back to your real life. This is my real life. The boardrooms were the fantasy. You don't believe that yet. Maybe not, but I'm learning. She stepped closer, close enough to feel his warmth. Don't disappear while I'm gone. I won't. Promise me. Elena, I can't promise what I might have to do. Then promise me you'll choose honestly. Not what Catherine would want. Not what the board wants. What Daniel wants. I don't know what Daniel wants. Yes, you do. You're just scared to admit it. She kissed him then, quick and soft, tasting like certainty and fear combined. Then she was gone, the bell chiming her exit. Daniel stood alone in the bookstore, surrounded by thousands of stories about people making impossible choices. None of them helped. His phone rang again. The board chairman. Daniel, we need an answer. The shareholders are panicking. Give me until Monday. The meeting is tomorrow. Then have it without me. He hung up. It felt like jumping off a cliff. Leonard emerged from the back room where he had definitely been eavesdropping. You love her. Yes. She's scared of you. I know. But she's more scared of not having you. How do you know? Because I've been watching people for 64 years. You learn to read hearts. Leonard poured himself tea. The board wants you back because you make them money. She wants you here because you make yourself human. Those are your choices. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're just making it complicated because humans hate simplicity. Saturday morning arrived gray and uncertain. Elena's flight left at 6. Daniel's board meeting started at 9. Two different futures pulling in opposite directions. Daniel woke at 4, couldn't sleep, went to the bookstore. He had a key now. Leonard had given it to him with a ceremony that involved scotch and a lecture about responsibility. The store was dark, quiet, full of sleeping stories. Daniel sat behind the counter and tried to imagine his life. Option 1. Return to sterling hospitality, fix the broken merger, stabilize stock prices, spend his days in suits and conference rooms, making decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions of dollars. Catherine's legacy preserved, his father's poverty avenged, everything he had built for 30 years maintained. Option 2, stay here, work for $12 an hour, help Leonard with inventory and difficult customers, keep showing up for Nathan and Emma, wait for Elena to return from Seattle and hope she might eventually forgive him completely. Let the company collapse or survive without him. Except that legacy might mean something different than buildings and balance sheets. His phone showed 23 missed calls, board members, executives, his lawyer, everyone wanting a piece of him. At 5:30, headlights swept across the storefront. A town car. Daniel went outside. Elena rolled down the window. What are you doing here? Couldn't sleep. You? Same. Car service came early. Daniel opened the door, slid into the back seat beside her. The driver pretended not to exist. I'm terrified, Elena said. Lucy's having a baby early, and I don't know if everything will be okay, and I'm supposed to be the strong mother, but I feel like I'm drowning. She'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can't promise that. No, but I can believe it. She leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. They sat like that, two scared people borrowing strength from each other. Your board meeting is in 3 hours, she said. I know. Are you going? I don't know. Daniel, I can't tell you what to do. I'm not asking you to. I'm just sitting with you until you have to leave. They rode to JFK in silence. At departures, Elena hesitated before getting out. If you go back to the company, I'll understand. Will you? No, but I'll pretend to. That's honest, at least. She kissed him properly this time, deep and desperate. tasting like goodbye or maybe hello. Then she was gone into the terminal, rolling suitcase behind her, moving toward her daughter and granddaughter, in a future that might not include him. Daniel told the driver to take him back to Manhattan, to his apartment, not the hotel. He needed to think. The penthouse overlooked Central Park, 30 floors of luxury that felt empty without Catherine. Her piano still stood in the corner. Her books lined the shelves, her presence everywhere and nowhere. Daniel opened his laptop. The board meeting agenda filled the screen, 12 items requiring his immediate attention, dozens of people depending on his decisions. He closed the laptop, opened his phone, scrolled to Nathan's contact. "Dad, it's 6 in the morning. I know, are you awake? Emma had nightmares. We're eating cereal in bed watching cartoons. Can I come over?" Silence, then, yeah, okay. Nathan's apartment was in Chelsea, much smaller than Daniel's penthouse, full of Emma's toys and evidence of partial living. They sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee while Emma watched television. "The board wants me back," Daniel said. "I know. It's been all over the business news. I told them I needed time to think. And I don't want to go back." Nathan stared at him. "You built that company from nothing. I built it by sacrificing everything that mattered. You, Catherine. Any chance at actual happiness. So you're just going to walk away? Let it collapse? I'm going to let it survive without me. Hire someone better. Someone who wants what I wanted 30 years ago. And do what instead? I don't know yet. Maybe work in a bookstore for $12 an hour. Maybe figure out how to be Emma's grandfather instead of just her genetic origin. Maybe see if Elena will forgive me enough to let me keep trying." Nathan's eyes were wet. "You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything. Mom would have loved this. You finally choosing people over profit. Your mother spent 30 years trying to teach me this lesson. I was too stupid to learn it until she was gone." Emma appeared in the doorway, dragging her stuffed rabbit. "Grandpa, will you read to me?" "Yes, sweetheart." They sat on Nathan's couch, Emma between father and grandfather, reading The Velveteen Rabbit for perhaps the 100th time. When they reached the part about becoming real through love, Emma looked up. "Are you real, Grandpa?" "I'm trying to be. Princess Elena makes you real, like the skin horse said." Out of the mouths of children came truths adults spent lifetimes avoiding. At 8:30, Daniel called his board chairman. "Daniel, thank God. Where are you?" "I'm with my son. I won't be at the meeting." "This is unacceptable. The shareholders demand answers." "Then give them this answer. I resign." Silence, then. "You can't be serious." "Completely serious. Effective immediately. My lawyer will handle the details. Find a new CEO, someone hungry, someone who still believes buildings matter more than people." "Daniel, you're making a massive mistake." "No, I'm correcting one." He hung up, felt lighter than he had in decades. Nathan was watching him with an expression somewhere between shock and admiration. "You actually did it." "I actually did it." "Now what?" "Now I go back to Brooklyn and convince Leonard not to fire me for being terrible at retail. Then I wait for Elena to come home and hope she'll let me keep showing up." Emma climbed into his lap. "Will you stay for breakfast, Grandpa? Daddy makes terrible pancakes, but they taste good anyway." Daniel looked at his son. Nathan nodded. "I would love terrible pancakes." They spent the morning together. 3 generations of sterling men who were finally learning that success is measured in presence, not profit. That legacy is not what you build, but who you show up for. That becoming real requires letting yourself be loved. In Seattle, Elena held her newborn granddaughter, Dorothy Elena, named for grandmothers living and dead. Lucy was tired but glowing, her husband hovering with the proud anxiety of new fathers. "She's perfect," Elena whispered. "You're crying, Mom." These are happy tears. But they were not just happy. They were complicated. Joy and grief tangled together. Missing Marcus, thinking about Daniel, wondering what she would find when she returned to New York. Her phone buzzed. Text from Beverly. "Your billionaire just quit. It's all over the news. Thought you should know." Elena stared at the message. "Read it again." Daniel had walked away from $8 billion and 44 hotels. For what? For $12 an hour in a Brooklyn bookstore? For a chance at redemption? For her? Lucy was watching her face. What happened? I think Daniel just jumped off a cliff. Is that good or bad? I don't know yet. The week passed in a blur of diapers and feedings and learning to be a grandmother. Elena fell in love with Dorothy the way she had fallen in love with Lucy 30 years ago. Completely. Irrevocably. With the terror of knowing how fragile love could be. But at night, alone in Lucy's guest room, she thought about Daniel. Wondered what he was doing, if he regretted his choice, if he was waiting for her or moving on. On Friday, her phone rang. Leonard, your boyfriend is still here. He's not my boyfriend. Fine, your future husband is still here. Leonard. He works every shift, shows up early, stays late. Yesterday, he sold $300 in books to a customer who came in looking for a trashy beach read. The man is a natural once you get past his complete incompetence with basic retail tasks. Why are you telling me this? Because you're scared he'll leave. He won't. That man is dug in like a tick, in a romantic way, not a parasitic way. Elena laughed despite herself. That's the worst metaphor I've ever heard. I'm old. My metaphors have declined. When are you coming home? Tomorrow. Lucy and the baby are doing great. Good, we miss you. Daniel especially, though he pretends he's fine. After they hung up, Elena stared at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around her. Dorothy fussed in the next room. Lucy's husband murmured soothing sounds. The music of family. Marcus would have loved this, she thought. Would have been a wonderful grandfather. But Marcus was gone, and the world kept turning. And Elena had to decide whether she was brave enough to risk her heart again. Saturday afternoon, Elena's flight touched down at JFK. She had texted Daniel that she was returning, but gotten no response. Maybe he was working. Maybe he was gone. She took a cab to Brooklyn, her suitcase full of gifts from Seattle. The bookstore appeared through rain-soaked windows, warm lights glowing against November gray. The bell chimed as she entered. The store was busy, Saturday afternoon crowd browsing between errands and obligations. Daniel stood behind the counter, helping a customer. He had gotten better at the register. His movements were confident now, practiced. He looked up when the bell rang, saw her, and his whole face changed. But he finished with his customer first, made proper change, wished them well. Then he came around the counter. They stood facing each other, aware of the store full of people pretending not to watch. You quit, Elena said. I quit? $8 billion. Turns out I didn't need it. What do you need? This. Books and customers, and Leonard yelling at me about inventory, Nathan and Emma showing up after school, working for something real instead of just profitable. He stepped closer. I need you. Daniel, I'm terrified. Me too. I don't know how to do this, how to risk everything again. Neither do I, but I'm willing to learn if you are. Lena felt tears coming, happy tears, scared tears, complicated tears that meant her heart was waking up after 3 years of sleep. I met my granddaughter, Dorothy Elena. She's perfect. I bet she is. Lucy named her after me, after Marcus's mother, honoring the past, while building the future. Yes. Elena touched his face, feeling stubble, warmth, reality. That's what we're doing, isn't it? Honoring our pasts while building something new. If you'll let me. She kissed him then, properly, deeply, in front of the entire Saturday afternoon crowd. Someone applauded. Leonard shouted congratulations from the back office. A teenager said gross, but smiled anyway. When they finally pulled apart, Daniel was grinning. Is that a yes? That's a maybe working toward yes. I'll take it. They worked side by side for the rest of the day. Shelving books, helping customers, learning each other's rhythms. It felt natural, easy, like they had been doing this for years instead of weeks. At closing time, Leonard locked the door and produced a bottle of wine from his desk drawer. To new beginnings, he said, pouring 3 glasses. To second chances, Elena added. To becoming real, Daniel finished. They drank standing among the books, three people who understood that the best stories are the ones you write yourself. Outside, Brooklyn moved through evening. Cars honked, sirens wailed, people rushed toward homes and loved ones. The world kept turning, indifferent to the small miracles happening in bookstores and hearts. But inside, Daniel Sterling and Elena Rivera were learning that wealth is measured in moments like these, that showing up is the hardest and most important work, that love after loss is possible if you're brave enough to risk breaking again. The months that followed were not easy. Daniel's resignation made headlines. Business reporters speculated about mental breakdowns and midlife crises. The stock initially plummeted, then stabilized when the board hired someone younger, hungrier, more willing to sacrifice everything for growth. Nathan and Jennifer went to counseling. Some sessions ended in tears, others in tentative hope. Emma split time between parents, learning resilience in the way children do. Elena's book lounge project moved forward. She traveled to Sterling hotels, designing spaces that felt like refuge. Daniel came with her, no longer as CEO, but as her assistant, carrying her bags and bringing her coffee and deferring to her vision. On a snowy evening in March, Daniel took Elena to Central Park. They walked through paths where lovers had walked for centuries, each believing their story was unique while participating in something universal. Near the lake, Daniel stopped. Elena Rivera, 6 months ago you offered me $5 for a sandwich. Don't remind me. You saw me when I was invisible. You taught me that kindness matters more than credit limits. You showed me that real wealth is measured in presence, not profit. He pulled out a small box. Elena's breath caught. This was Catherine's ring. I had it redesigned, not to erase her, but to honor her while building something new. Is that okay? Elena nodded, unable to speak. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend whatever time I have left trying to deserve you? Yes, she whispered. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. It caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the snow. They married in September, small ceremony, large hearts. Lucy came with baby Dorothy. Nathan brought Emma and Jennifer, their families slowly healing. Beverly and Robert stood as witnesses. Leonard officiated, having gotten ordained specifically for this purpose. In his vows, Daniel promised to show up, to choose presence over profit, to become real through love. Elena promised to be brave, to risk her heart, to honor her past while embracing her future. They kissed while friends cheered and strangers smiled, and the world kept turning. 2 years later, Sterling Book Lounges operated in 32 hotels. Elena ran the program from a small office in Brooklyn, above Leonard's store. Daniel worked beside her, no longer CEO of anything, just her partner in building something meaningful. Nathan reconciled with Jennifer. They had another baby, attended therapy religiously. Learned that marriage is a choice you make daily, not a destination you reach. Emma grew, learned to read, spent weekends at the bookstore, where her grandparents taught her that stories matter because they remind us we are not alone. On quiet Sunday mornings, Daniel and Elena still walk through Central Park. Older now, slower, but together. Any regrets? Elena asked one morning. Only that I wasted so many years being afraid. Those years brought you here. Then I regret nothing. They walked on hand in hand, two people who had learned that the second chapter can be as beautiful as the first. That wealth is measured in moments, not money. That becoming real requires letting yourself be loved, completely and terrifyingly, and without reservation. Behind them, the city woke slowly. Ahead, the path wound through trees, just beginning to show autumn colors. And between them, the space where two damaged hearts had learned to beat as one, imperfect and beautiful and absolutely, finally real. The end, or rather the beginning disguised as an ending, which is how all the best love stories work.